A lot of people know their astrology sign faster than they know their attachment style. They can tell you, I'm a Virgo, I'm a Pisces, I'm a Scorpio, I'm a Leo. They can tell you what kind of energy they think they bring into a room. They can tell you whether they are fiery, emotional, grounded, intuitive, guarded, intense, or affectionate. But they cannot tell you why they panic when someone pulls away, why they lose interest when someone becomes consistent, why they overfunction in relationships, why they shut down when closeness gets real, why they keep calling instability chemistry, why they keep confusing emotional intensity with emotional depth, why calm feels unfamiliar, why chaos feels like home. And that matters because one of those systems may give you language to reflect on yourself. The other can help explain why your life keeps repeating. That is the difference. This is not about mocking astrology. This is about precision. Because astrology may give you a generalized way to think about yourself. But attachment gives you something far more useful. It helps you understand how you relate, how you bond, how you react under emotional threat, how you protect yourself, how you misread safety, how you repeat pain, and how you actually change. And if you don't know your attachment style, you will keep trying to solve relational problems with identity language that is not deep enough to hold the real issue. You will keep saying, this is just how I am, when the deeper truth is, this is how I learned to survive connection. That's different. And if you don't know the difference, you will keep protecting patterns that are costing you peace, intimacy, clarity, and growth. Because here is the question underneath this whole video. What if the relationships you keep calling destiny are actually familiarity? Hold that. Because if what feels right is not always healthy, then a lot of what you trusted as instinct may actually be conditioning. And that changes everything. Let us start clean and fair. A lot of people use astrology for meaning, language, and reflection. They use it to think about compatibility, temperament, communication style, energy, identity, interpersonal tendencies. And for some people, it becomes a framework for curiosity. It can help them pause and ask, what am I like? What do I tend to do? What kind of people do I attract? How do I show up in relationship? That is not useless. Reflection matters. Language matters. Sometimes people need an accessible entry point into self-observation, and astrology may function as that entry point. So the point here is not astrology is stupid. Nah. The point is astrology is often descriptive. Attachment is more actionable. Astrology may help someone feel seen in broad strokes. Attachment helps explain why they do what they do when they are scared, why they react the way they react when closeness changes, why they misread consistency, why they chase, why they withdraw, why they over-explain, why they shut down, why they cling, why they detach, why they repeat. Astrology often helps with narrative. Attachment helps with mechanism. That is a major difference. Because if I tell you, you tend to be intense in relationships, that may sound meaningful. But if I tell you, you learned to associate inconsistency with emotional significance, so your system now reads unpredictability as meaningful. Now we are getting somewhere. Now we have something we can work with. Now we are not just admiring a description. Now we are understanding a pattern. Attachment is more advantageous to know because it helps you understand how you function in real relational life. Not just how you think you are, not just what sounds like you, not just what resonates with your self-concept. It helps you understand what you actually do. And that matters because your life is not built by what feels accurate in theory. Your life is built by what gets repeated in behavior. Knowing your attachment pattern can help you understand how you interpret silence, how you interpret distance, how you interpret closeness, how you interpret inconsistency, how you interpret reassurance, how you interpret conflict, how you interpret emotional need, how you interpret vulnerability, how you interpret dependence and independence, how you interpret safety. That is huge because two people can experience the exact same event and mean completely different things by it. One person hears, I need a little space today, and thinks, okay, that makes sense. Another person hears, I need a little space today, and feels, I'm about to be abandoned. Same words, different attachment style. One person experiences closeness and thinks, this feels good. Another person experiences closeness and thinks, this feels dangerous. Same closeness, different attachment system. One person experiences consistency and feels relief. Another person experiences consistency. Another person experiences consistency and feels bored, suspicious, or emotionally unstimulated. Same consistency, different attachment system. So if you don't understand attachment, you will keep assuming your reactions are simply reality. They are not always reality. Sometimes they are history speaking through the present. And that is one of the biggest reasons attachment awareness is more useful. It helps you stop confusing your conditioned response with objective truth. Psychology has a name for this. Your system does not only respond to what is happening now, but it responds to what something means based on what has been repeatedly learned before. That means your present reactions are often shaped by older relational learning. So when people say, I don't know why I reacted that strongly, many times the answer is not that they are irrational. The answer is that their reaction makes sense in the context of their conditioning. That does not mean it is accurate. It means it is patterned. And once something is patterned, it can be interrupted, but only if it is identified clearly. Attachment is your learned style of relating around connection, closeness, dependence, safety, threat, and emotional need. It is not just how you love. It is how your system learned to manage connection. That includes questions like, what do I do when I need someone? What do I do when someone needs me? What happens inside of me when distance increases? What do I do when I feel uncertain? What do I do when I feel emotionally exposed? How do I respond to inconsistency? How do I respond to predictability? How do I manage fear? How do I manage fear of loss? How do I manage fear of engulfment? That is attachment territory. Attachment develops through repeated relational experience, not one moment, not one memory, not one dramatic event only. Repeated experience. How often were your emotions noticed? How often were they dismissed? How often was care consistent? How often did care feel unpredictable? How often did you have to work for emotional closeness? How often did you feel too much? How often did you feel alone inside connection? How often did you learn that your needs got you comfort? How often did you learn that your needs got you rejection, overwhelm, ridicule, absence, or burden? Your system learns from repetition, and then it carries that learning forward. So attachment is not just about who your caregivers were. It is about the meaning your system made from repeated relational experience. That meaning becomes expectation. Expectation becomes perception. Perception becomes behavior. Behavior becomes repetition. And repetition becomes life structure. That is why this matters. Because if you are still relating from old expectations, you may keep entering new relationships with old interpretations. Then you call it bad luck, my type, chemistry, or destiny, when a large part of it may actually be attachment patterning. Let's explain this clearly. These patterns are not customs. They are not rigid boxes. They are not excuses. They are not identities you worship. They are patterns of adaptation. And many people will have a dominant pattern with complexity inside of it. You may also notice different patterns activated in different relationships or contexts. But for teaching purposes, let's break them down clearly. Secure attachment does not mean perfect. It does not mean never anxious. It does not mean never hurt. It does not mean never triggered. It means there is enough internal and relational stability that connection does not constantly feel like danger. A more secure person can usually receive care without panicking about what it means. Give care without feeling consumed by it. Experience distance without instantly collapsing. Experience closeness without instantly withdrawing. Express need without excessive shame. Hear another person's need without experiencing it as attack. Repair conflict without believing the relationship is automatically over. Allow consistency without mistrusting it simply because it is calm. Secure attachment is not the absence of emotion. It is the increased capacity to remain organized inside emotion. That matters because the goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is to become less controlled by attachment fear. Anxious attachment. Anxious attachment often develops when connection feels important but not reliably secure. The system learns that closeness matters deeply, but access to it may feel uncertain. So now the system becomes highly attentive to signs of distance, disconnection, withdrawal, delay, tone change, reduced contact, and ambiguity. This can look like overthinking messages, checking for reassurance, reading deeply into small changes, becoming highly affected by inconsistency, seeking closeness quickly, feeling distressed when connection feels uncertain, wanting more confirmation than the other person understands, experiencing high emotional activation around relational ambiguity. The underlying energy is often, I need to know we are okay. I need to know I still matter. I need to know this connection is secure. I need something to reduce this uncertainty. So anxious attachment is not just clingy. That is too shallow and too shaming. It is often a pattern in which the system has learned that uncertainty around connection feels dangerous. And because uncertainty feels dangerous, the system moves toward proximity, reassurance, contact, clarity, and confirmation. That behavior makes sense. But if it is not understood, it can create cycles that intensify distress. You text someone you care about. They normally respond in an hour. Now it has been 4. Your mind starts moving. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset with me? Are they losing interest? Why are they taking this long? I knew something felt off. Maybe I should send another message. Maybe I should just ask if we are okay. By the time they respond, your nervous system has already built an entire story. That is not just overthinking. That is attachment activation. Avoidant attachment Avoidant attachment often develops when closeness, need, or dependence becomes associated with discomfort, overwhelm, disappointment, intrusion, or loss of autonomy. The system learns the the system learns some version of relying on others is not safe. Needing too much leads to pain. Closeness comes with cost. I need to manage on my own. I need space to feel stable. I cannot let people get too close. So when intimacy increases, the person may experience discomfort. Not because intimacy is objectively bad, but because their system has learned to associate increased closeness with risk. This can look like pulling back when things get more serious, minimizing emotional need, feeling irritated by dependence, struggling to name feelings, keeping distance to feel safe, downplaying closeness, preferring control over vulnerability, detaching under emotional pressure. The underlying energy is often, I do not want to lose myself. I do not want to be trapped. I do not want to depend on someone and get hurt. I do not want this to become too much. So avoidant attachment is not just they do not care. That is too simplistic. A lot of avoidant behavior is protective organization around closeness. The person may care deeply and still withdraw because care is not the same as capacity. Someone starts showing up for you consistently. They are kind, they are direct, they are available, they want to build. And instead of feeling relieved, you feel pressure. You start noticing flaws. You start wanting more space. You start taking longer to respond. You start feeling like this is becoming too much. The other person thinks, I'm being good to you. Why are you backing away? But your system is not reading it as good. It is reading it as close. And close feels costly. This is attachment. Disorganized or fearful attachment. This pattern holds both longing and fear. The person wants closeness, needs closeness, may crave deep connection, but closeness also activates alarm. So the system moves toward and away from connection at the same time. This can look like intense bonding followed by sudden withdrawal, strong desire for closeness with simultaneous mistrust, pulling people near and then pushing them away, feeling unsafe in distance and unsafe in intimacy, becoming dysregulated by relational ambiguity and relational closeness, wanting love but bracing against it. The underlying energy is often, I need connection, but connection is dangerous. I want to be seen, but being seen does not feel safe. I want intimacy, but intimacy activates fear. This can be incredibly confusing for the person and for the people relating to them, because one day it looks like deep longing. The next day it looks like shutdown, then pursuit, then retreat, then vulnerability, then defensive distance. That is not simply inconsistency of character. It is often conflict inside the attachment system itself. You feel drawn to someone. You open up. You feel connected. You feel relief. Then suddenly you feel exposed. Now your mind starts shifting. This is too much. I don't know if I can trust this. I need to back up. What if this goes bad? What if I get hurt? What if I lose control? So you move away from the very thing you wanted. Not because you are fake, not because you are playing games, because your system does not yet know how to hold closeness without fear. This right here is one of the most important parts, because many people are not choosing based on health. They are choosing based on familiarity. And familiarity often feels powerful. It can feel magnetic. It can feel deep. It can feel intense. It can feel undeniable. It can feel like This person just does something to me. Yes, because your nervous system recognizes the pattern. That does not automatically mean the connection is healthy. It does not automatically mean the connection is meant to be. Sometimes it means this feels emotionally familiar to my system. That is different. A lot of people mistake activation for alignment. They think if I feel a lot, it must mean a lot. Nope, it doesn't. Sometimes it means you are activated. A lot of people mistake unpredictability for depth. They think this is so intense. Yes, because inconsistency is a powerful activator. A lot of people mistake anxiety for intuition. They think I just feel something so strongly. Yes, because your body is an alarm. That is why attachment knowledge is so useful, because it gives you a way to ask, is this peace or is this pattern? Is this depth or is this dysregulation? Is this safety or is this familiarity? Is this connection or is this activation? Those are life-changing questions. Remember the question, what if the relationships you keep calling destiny are actually familiarity? Now you can see why that question matters. Because without attachment awareness, you may keep trusting what feels strong without asking whether it is good. This is where attachment becomes more advantageous than astrology. Astrology may help you reflect. Attachment can help you intervene. It can help you catch the sequence, event, meaning, activation, urge, behavior, sequence, reinforcement. That is a workable sequence. For example, someone takes longer than usual to reply. You interpret it as threat. Your body activates. You feel urged to pursue your protest. You send multiple messages or become reactive. The interaction becomes strained. Your fear increases. Your pattern gets reinforced. Now let us take another. Someone gets emotionally close. You interpret closeness as loss of freedom or danger. Your body activates. You feel urged to create distance. You withdraw or go numb. The other person feels shut out. Connection weakens. Your pattern gets reinforced. See the difference? Attachment knowledge helps you stop at the interpretation and ask, what am I making this mean? What is being activated in me? What is my usual protective move? If I do that move again, what happens next? That's powerful, because once the sequence is visible, behavior is no longer random. And once behavior is no longer random, it becomes interruptible. General personality language can become too broad. It can become flattering. It can become identity theater. It can become self-description without self-interruption. I'm just intense. I'm just guarded. I just love hard. I just need a lot. I'm just independent. I'm just intuitive. I'm just not like other people. Maybe, or maybe you have built a clean narrative around unexamined pattern. And that is dangerous, because once you turn the pattern into personality, you stop challenging it. Once you turn a defense into identity, you protect it. Once you turn conditioning into this is just who I am, you slow your own healing. That is why attachment language is more useful. It is not just this is who I am. It is this is how I learned to organize around connection. And if it was learned, it can be updated. That creates hope without lying, because it does not shame the adaptation, but it also does not worship it. This is where a lot of people half-step the conversation. They talk about attachment like it is just an idea. It is not just an idea. It is lived in the body. Silence hits the chest. Distance hits the stomach. Closeness hits the breath. Conflict hits the nervous system. Uncertainty changes sleep. Delayed contact changes appetite. Emotional exposure changes muscle tension. Withdrawal changes heart rate. Pursuit changes mental focus. This is not just abstract. This is embodied. So when someone says, I know I'm overreacting, but I still feel like this, that makes sense because insight and activation are not the same thing. You can know something intellectually and still have a body that is conditioned differently. That is why change is not only cognitive, it is experiential. You do not only need new thoughts, you need new experiences of safety, consistency, boundaries, clarity, repair, and emotional survivability. Your body has to learn. I can feel uncertainty and not collapse. I can feel closeness and not disappear. I can feel space and not assume abandonment. I can express need and not become shame. I can be disappointed and still stay organized. I can be loved without being consumed. I can be separate without being lost. That is deep work. And that is why attachment knowledge is valuable because it leads not only to self-description, but to nervous system retraining through repeated corrective experience. Now, let us bring this fully into the GYG system. Not surface mention, not quick labels, real teaching. 1. Family. First and most importantly, love yourself. One of the reasons attachment matters so much is because the self is not a simple single unit. Inside of you, there are parts, roles, positions, and pattern responses. The part of you that chases is not the same part of you that shuts down. The part of you that longs is not the same part that protects. The part of you that wants reassurance is not the same part that says, I do not need anybody. Your internal world often functions like a family within. Different parts have different jobs. One part may try to preserve connection at all costs. Another part may try to preserve dignity. Another part may try to prevent rejection. Another part may try to prevent engulfment. Another part may want to run away. Another part may want to merge. This is why people feel confused by themselves. They are not always confused. They are divided in strategy. That matters because if you think of yourself as one flat, singular, constant voice, you will misread your own process. You will say, I don't know why I did that. When the better question is, which part of me was trying to solve what? That is family work. And loving yourself is not just saying nice things in the mirror. It is learning to understand the internal system without shaming it while still leading it well. It is being able to say, a part of me is terrified right now. A part of me wants to text again. A part of me feels rejected. A part of me wants to disappear. A part of me wants to control this situation. And instead of becoming the part, you learn to lead the part. That is not fluff. That is internal leadership. And attachment healing becomes more possible when you stop letting the loudest activated part define the whole self. Real. Recognize every aspect of life. Real matters here because attachment patterns love simplification. They love selective attention. If you are anxiously attached, you may hyper-focus on cues of withdrawal while ignoring evidence of stability. If you are avoidantly attached, you may hyper-focus on signs of demand while minimizing your own care needs. If you are disorganized, you may alternate between idealizing and distrusting. So real means you have to become more honest and more complete in what you recognize, not just what fits your fear, not just what fits your preference, not just what fits your pattern, every aspect. That means asking, what actually happened? What did I feel? What did I assume? What did I fear? What did I do next? What evidence did I emphasize? What evidence did I ignore? What old pattern might be shaping my interpretation? That is mature recognition. A lot of people do not have a total lack of awareness. They have partial awareness distorted by attachment. Real asks you to widen the frame, not just they took a long time to reply. Also, have they been generally consistent? Did they communicate another demand? Am I responding to today or to old fear? Am I naming the event accurately or through activation? That is how recognition becomes clarifying instead of reactive. Real interrupts attachment distortion. And without real, you will keep calling selective interpretation intuition. DC, intentional, deliberate, creative living. Attachment healing does not happen because you had a breakthrough one night. It does not happen because a video resonated. It does not happen because you can now identify your style. It does not happen because you cried and understood yourself. That may matter, but healing requires intentional, deliberate, creative living. Intentional means you do not leave your relational life up to whatever you feel in the moment. Deliberate means you make repeated choices with awareness. Creative means you build new ways of responding instead of recycling the old ones. This matters because attachment patterns are procedural. They are not just opinions in your head. They are pattern ways of doing life. So IDC asks, how am I going to intentionally respond when old activation shows up? How am I going to deliberately practice a new behavior? How am I going to creatively build structure around my weaker moments? That may mean not texting immediately when activated, waiting before reacting, naming your need instead of protesting it, tolerating calm instead of chasing intensity, remaining present in the closeness instead of withdrawing automatically, creating relational pacing instead of fusing fast, building boundaries that slow reenactment. That is IDC. You do not drift into secure relating. You practice into it. Think it, speak it, do it. This one is essential because many people stall in the first two. They think it, sometimes they can even speak it. I know this relationship is inconsistent. I know I get activated by distance. I know I shut down when people get close. I know I should stop doing this. I know I need better boundaries. And then what? They do the exact same thing. That is the gap. Thinking something is not doing something. Naming something is not changing something. Insight is not execution. This is why people feel frustrated with themselves. They think because they can articulate the pattern, they should already be different. No, you are not changed by the accuracy of your language alone. You are changed by the repetition of new behavior. So think it, speak it, do it means think it clearly, speak it truthfully, do it behaviorally. For attachment work, that may look like think it. I am activated right now, and my mind is making this mean abandonment. Speak it. I notice I want reassurance right now, and I need to slow down before I react. Do it. Put the phone down. Breathe. Wait. Respond later from clarity instead of panic. Or think it. I want to pull away because closeness feels overwhelming. Speak it. I notice I need space, but I do not want to disappear without communicating. Do it. Communicate directly instead of withdrawing into silence. That is where growth happens, not in understanding the sequence alone, in practicing a different sequence. Devotion. Deliberately execute valuable, observable tools intentionally, operationally, and nobly. This is one of the strongest lenses for attachment because a lot of people say they want healthy love, but their behaviors show devotion to what is familiar, not what is healthy. They are devoted to old pacing, old pursuit, old fantasy. old overfunctioning, old distance, old shutdown, old inconsistency, old chaos, old relief patterns. That is devotion. Not because they want to suffer, but because behavior reveals allegiance. You are most devoted to what you repeatedly execute. So if you say, I want peace, but repeatedly choose volatility, your behavior is more honest than your words. If you say, I want healthy connection, but keep reinforcing instability because it feels more emotionally charged, your nervous system is still devoted to the old pattern. This is why devotion matters so much, because attachment healing is not only what do I understand, it is what do I repeatedly practice when discomfort shows up. Deliberately execute valuable, observable tools mean you do not just agree with truth, you practice it. Intentionally means you do not wait for ideal feeling states. Operationally means you build the behavior into real life structure. Nobly means you honor what is right, not just what is relieving. This is huge in attachment work because many people are not failing due to ignorance. They are failing at the level of devotion. They are still devoted to immediate relief. Immediate relief says, text again, chase now, explain more, tell them. Withdraw now, shut down now, leave now, latch now, disappear now. But growth requires devotion to a different set of tools. Not every delay is abandonment. Not every need is weakness. Not every closeness is danger. Not every activation needs action. Not every intense feeling is guidance. Not every familiar dynamic is good for me. Devotion means you keep executing healthier truth long enough for your life to start reflecting it. Integration. This one is critical because attachment content is easy to admire and hard to live. You can understand attachment beautifully and still reenact it daily. You can teach it and still repeat it. You can name your style and still protect it. You can sound aware and still be unintegrated. Integration asks, has this understanding entered behavior, relationship choice, nervous system response, boundary practice, pacing, and self-leadership? If not, it is still mostly concept. Integration means your knowledge is now changing. What you tolerate, what you choose, what you pursue, what you normalize, what you step away from, what you call chemistry, what you call safety, what you call under stress. What do you do under stress? That is integration. Without integration, information becomes performance. And a lot of people are informationally impressive and behaviorally unchanged. That is why they feel divided. They know better, but they do not yet do better. Integration closes the gap. Trajectories. Attachment patterns are not just moments. They are directions. Every repeated attachment behavior creates trajectory. Every time you chase panic with pursuit, you deepen one trajectory. Every time you escape closeness with withdrawal, you deepen another. Every time you normalize inconsistency, you reinforce a relational future. Every time you confuse chaos for aliveness, you shape your emotional destination. Trajectories matter because people often look at one moment and say, it's not that serious. Maybe not by itself, but repetition creates direction. And direction, repeated long enough, creates life. So trajectories ask, if I keep doing this, who do I become? If I keep responding like this, what relationships do I keep building? If I keep normalizing this, what future am I rehearsing? This is powerful because it helps attachment work become less reactive and more directional. You stop asking only, how do I feel right now? And start asking, where does this pattern lead? That question can save years because a lot of people are not trapped in one bad moment. They are practicing a bad trajectory. And attachment knowledge helps expose that before more time gets lost. Identity construction. This is the final lock. Because if you turn your attention pattern into your identity, you will protect it. If your identity becomes, I'm just anxious, I'm just avoidant, I'm just too much, I'm just hard to love, I'm just someone who pushes people away, I'm just someone who needs a lot, I'm just independent, I'm just not built for closeness, then every pattern starts sounding permanent. And what sounds permanent usually gets protected. Identity construction asks, what am I repeatedly telling myself about who I am in relationships? Does that identity keep me accountable or excuse repetition? Does that identity support growth or lock me inside adaptation? This matters because people often merge with their coping pattern. Then healing feels like self-betrayal. Why? Because if I think my adaptation is me, then changing the adaptation feels like losing myself. That is why identity work is necessary. You have to move from this is who I am to this is what I learned. And then from this is what I learned to this is what I am now intentionally changing. That is identity construction in service of growth. Not shame, not denial, not pretending the pattern does not exist. Recognizing it clearly without becoming loyal to it. This is the practical advantage. Attachment awareness is not just insight. It helps you build structure. And structure matters because when people are activated, they often do not need more inspiration. They need a system. If you know you are anxiously activated by ambiguity, then one structure may be do not react at the peak of activation. Create a waiting period before responding. Journal the meaning you are making. Check facts before protest. Practice direct need expression instead of indirect panic behavior. If you know you are avoidantly activated by closeness, one structure may be do not disappear without communication. Notice when tenderness makes you want distance. Stay present a little longer before retreating. Practice naming need for space without severing connection. Notice when criticism is being used to create emotional distance. If you know you oscillate between longing and fear, one structure may be slow relational pacing. Do not overmerge quickly. Track when vulnerability flips into alarm. Build regulation practices around closeness. Work on consistency in behavior, not just intensity in feeling. That is why attachment is so advantageous. It lets you build structure around pattern. And once structure is built around pattern, repetition becomes more interruptible. If you know that silence activates you, then when someone takes longer to respond, instead of sending 4 follow-up messages, your structure might be pause, name activation. Do not fill in the story yet. Wait for more information. Return to your body. Respond later from clarity. That is not suppression. That is structured interruption. If you know that emotional closeness makes you want to pull away, then when someone expresses need for affection, your structure might be notice urge to disconnect. Do not vanish. Communicate honestly. Stay in contact without overexposure. Let closeness be present without treating it like immediate threat. That is not forcing fake intimacy. That is building tolerance for healthy connection. Attachment can help you understand why your body responds to relationships the way it does, why your attraction is not always trustworthy, why your type may be trauma-linked or familiarity-based, why reassurance works temporarily but not deeply. Why consistency can feel strange at first. Why being pursued can feel suffocating. Why distance can feel unbearable. Why you may repeat painful bonds with precision. Why you can know better and still reenact worse. Why your growth requires behavior, not only insight. That is major. Because now we are not just talking about personality flavor. We are talking about relational architecture. And relational architecture affects everything: dating, friendship, marriage, conflict, repair, boundaries, trust, communication, need expression, emotional regulation, self-esteem, identity, and life trajectory. That is why this matters more. Not because astrology cannot be interesting, but because attachment is more structurally useful. Some of you are using softer language to avoid deeper truth. You keep saying, this is just the kind of person I attract. No, sometimes this is the kind of pattern your system knows how to attach to. You keep saying, I just love deeply. Maybe, but maybe you also attach anxiously and call distress devotion. You keep saying, I just need space. Maybe, but maybe you also protect yourself from dependence so aggressively that you interrupt intimacy before it can become real. You keep saying, it just didn't feel right. Maybe, but maybe calm did not feel familiar enough to your nervous system. That is why attachment work can feel confronting, because it removes flattering vagueness. It brings you face to face with the functional truth of your patterns. And not everybody wants that, because once you see the pattern clearly, you lose some of your old excuses. So no, this is not about saying nobody should ever care about astrology. This is about saying, if your goal is real self-understanding, real relational growth, real behavioral change, real healing, real clarity, real structure, real interruption of painful repetition, then attachment is more advantageous to know. Because attachment helps explain the system underneath the behavior. It helps you understand why your body, mind, emotions, and behaviors organize the way they do around connection. It helps you stop identifying with what is actually adaptation. It helps you stop calling activation intuition. It helps you stop calling familiarity destiny. It helps you stop confusing repetition with truth. And once you know that, you can start building differently. You do not just need language that sounds like you. You need language that can challenge you. You do not just need a description that feels good. You need a framework that can expose what keeps repeating, because your life will not be changed by what you casually resonate with. Your life will be changed by what helps you identify, interrupt, and rebuild the patterns governing how you relate. And that is why knowing your attachment pattern can do more for your life than knowing your sign. One may help you narrate yourself. The other can help you transform yourself. Understanding your psychology matters. It helps you understand the patterns shaping your life. Understand clearly. Integrate deeply. Grow yourself great.